Hi, everyone. Welcome to our second speaker series. My name is Brisabel Opowski. I am the Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion here at Deca Ryerson. And today I'll be your host for the bad side of social media. Before we start, I would like to do the land acknowledgement. So I would like to acknowledge that the city of Toronto is located in the Dish with One Stone territory. The Dish with One Stone territory The Dish with One Stone territory is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit, peace, friendship, and respect. For those of us who are not part of the Indigenous community, I would like us to do our part by educating ourselves on the history of Indigenous people, by being allies, and by amplifying Indigenous people's voices. So today we have two lovely guest speakers. The first one is Dr. Jenny Liu, which will be speaking in a few seconds. And our second guest is Rachel. So I would like to give the floor to Rachel to introduce herself.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for having me. First of all, I'm very excited to be here and talk about this topic and explore. My name is Rachel Bettencourt, and I am a writer and digital creator. I'm currently a project manager at the nonprofit organization called Safe Social. And Safe Social's mission is to help educate and help others be well before, during, and after social media use. I developed and currently run their ambassador program, which has over 30 plus ambassadors from all around the globe. And I've always been a mental health advocate, and I hope I'm able to share some insight today and be a valuable resource to you in your learning.
Thank you, Rachel, and we really look forward to learning from you. And next, I would like to introduce Dr. Jenny Liu.
Sure. Thanks, Brisabel. So my name is Jenny. I am a postdoctoral associate at the McDonald Franklin OSI Research Center, and I also have an appointment as an adjunct research professor in the Department of Psychiatry, Schulich School of Medicine at Western University. I'm also cross-appointed at the Toronto Western Hospital, Crumble Research Institute, at the Daphne Kakwa School of Nursing, and in the Department of Psychology here at Ryerson University. I'm also a Ryerson University alumni and graduate. So my background is actually not in social media, it's in psychology, specifically stress and resilience. But in my own work, I have done a lot of mobile and digital health, which of course intersect a lot with social media in terms of the way that we promote the different mobile applications, the different digital health devices. And so that's been my exposure to social media, and I'm so looking forward to it. I'm also, of course, not going to expose my age, but it's been great to see the growth of social media since MySpace and all of the other kind of iterations that's come since.
Yeah, there's been a lot for sure.
Yes.
I am so excited to listen to both of you ladies, and I'm sure our attendees are excited too. So I would like to start our question. So my first question is, how did you get into the area of social media?
I guess I'll start it off. So I grew up with social media, as a lot of people have here. I myself am a new graduate only from last year. So I've been living with and growing with social media ever since I was a wee little tot. And I feel like as I've grown up, I've also learned a lot about how it can affect me versus from when I was a child versus a teenager versus an adult. So since knowing that, I've always been a mental health advocate. And when I found out about the nonprofit organization called Safe Social, I was like, this is something I need to be a part of. So I really got heavily focused into education around social media. Just this past year and a half, I've been working alongside the founder of our organization, Bailey Parnell, and she's been such an incredible resource to many people, but mainly to her team. She's really lent a great hand. So that's kind of where I got really started professionally, I guess you could say, in the social media aspect of this.
Cool.
I guess my turn now. So yeah, I'm just a casual social media user, I would say. Although having served as the director of research for a private kind of digital mental health company, there was a lot of intersectionality between how we use social media and also what the consumer looks for in a digital mobile product, right? In terms of the scrollability of it, the graphics, the interactivity of it, lots of those overlapping features. And so in my kind of position as a director of research, I was trying to kind of bridge the two, highlight features that are familiar to users, and also try and kind of integrate the latest evidence and research. I'm also the co-investigator on Project ProTag, which is specifically a COVID-19 rapid response project that is seeking to support those who are most affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, including frontline healthcare workers, as well as Asian Canadians. And one of our biggest platforms is using all the social medias to reach out and connect in the community.
Cool. That's a lot of good stuff you guys are mentioning. Specifically the COVID-19 one. I've never, like, I have thought of people who, you know, in the frontline workers, they're really important, and I'm really happy that you are helping them. So I would love to go to my next question, which is, what are some of the stigmas that are associated with social media from the time you use them, even from the research that you've done, Dr. Jenny?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can just call me Jenny. It's totally okay. But I would say that it's an interesting topic because social media invites this big generational gap in conversation when we have. So lots of times when we are trying to connect with others or trying to use it, we see this disconnect in between the different generations, right? You see younger adults, teenagers, adolescents use social media, and you see the strong opposition from parents and grandparents, like, get off your phone, I don't understand. And so there's that kind of intergenerational gap simply because they didn't grow up using social media. And so there's some tension there. In addition, there's also just the inherent stigma of or just discomfort sometimes of using social media, because sometimes as you're scrolling, you're like, oh, you feel a little bit FOMO, or you have, fear of missing out, or sometimes you form judgments very quickly of others based on the way that they appear or the content that they share on social media, and it gets into this area where you're either trying to keep up or you're comparing yourself. And so those are some of the kind of the negative stigmas associated with the use or overuse of social media. And kind of extending beyond that, then we get into the area of mental health, right? We start to think about, okay, so then what does that say about mental health? Should we be concerned? Are they not doing anything and just kind of living a very sedentary lifestyle where they're not going out, not doing anything, just spending all day on their phone? Are they so absorbed into social media that now we should be concerned about their mental health, their depression, their anxiety, their mood, their suicidality? So lots of kind of that expanded effect, mainly out of some concern and discomfort because of the lack of familiarity with social media use.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said, Jenny. I feel like there's many stigmas around the use of social media. And I feel like the main stigma is that social media is a toxic place. I think we hear that all the time. Oh, social media is so toxic. And it itself is just inherently bad. Yet I think the truth of the matter is that the dark side of social media is actually the dark side of people. The platforms themselves are not curated to make you feel this way. Yet what people post on it and how you perceive it very much, I think, identifies how you will have experienced this image or how you will experience being online. So the main stigma is that, like, Twitter itself is evil. Instagram itself is so bad. Facebook itself is so this. Yet I think it's a lot to do with you yourself as the user and the other users on this platform, because they were mainly built to share photos, to connect, to inspire, to create. And these are all great things that social media can be useful for, but the stigma is that it's bad. So then you have this idea going into it that's already going to be bad. So it's about mindset before you even think about the app itself.
For sure, I can definitely agree with you, Rachel. Like, I heard one time there was the speaker in a TED Talk, and she was saying that if you don't want to see bad things in social media, you shouldn't be subscribing to those bad things. And I think it starts with us and how we portray ourselves and what we like choose to see. And it's not like the app itself, I would say, like, you're right. But I definitely want to ask about the mental health aspect of social media. So how would you describe how, like, the way it affects our mental health? It can be both positive or negative.
Absolutely. So what's really interesting is earlier I touched upon like some discomfort around the, intergenerational gap. So there's almost some sort of tension there. So the use of it itself can kind of create some stresses and strains on relationships interpersonally. In addition, even outside of the intergenerational gap, sometimes you get people who are using it and others who are less comfortable. And so it affects the dynamics of a relationship, which can affect, of course, your mental health. Outside of the fear of missing out, the constant need to check as well, there's also the need for validation. Sometimes the way that social media is designed, right, with the like button, the share button, you're constantly looking at the stats, like what are my insights, how many people share this, how many people watch my stories, right, who are the people watching my stories, how many people liked or disliked or had a weird reaction. And so because of these, it's almost like we're chasing after the dopamine rush that comes after those forms of validation. And so not only could it create tensions interpersonally, it can also create instabilities in our emotions as we deal with the constant flow of information, constant shifts of information. And to Rachel's great point, social media itself is simply a platform, multiple platforms, right? And each platform kind of has its own unique identity, its own theme and whatnot. But at its core, social media is really an amplifier. It can amplify your mood. It can amplify the connections you make. It can amplify the messages you want to share, the messages that you're open to receiving. And so tying that to mental health, and it's really about amplifying your own state of mental health sometimes.
I fully agree. I feel like the main negative point of social media is that there's an elevated rate of comparison. And it's normal to compare yourself. That's a normal thing that people go through. That's how you grow. That's how you learn. That's how you know your likes and your dislikes. And while that is super valuable to have, when put on platforms such as social media, especially children at a young age that are starting at age 9, 10, they're comparing themselves at a much higher rate to way more people with these extra standards of beauty or lifestyle that are not really reasonable. Let's be honest. There are people there that are highly filtered, highly curated in terms of their lives and what they put out. And that's great. But to the naive eye, it's, why don't I look like that? Why don't I have a life like that? Why does my partner not do this for me? Why do my friends not post for my birthday? X, Y, Z. There are so many extra levels that maybe before social media existed, even if you felt it, it wasn't at this rate, which causes people to feel more anxious, depressed. We are lonelier than ever, yet we are more connected than ever, because through our scrolling, there is more isolation. That's an alone type of thing. I mean, there are people that hang out and just scroll on their phones. That's awesome if that works out for you. For me personally, it doesn't, because I feel like that's a very much, I do that when I'm by myself. So because of this like extra focus on being on your phone while being alone, it also adds an inability to focus. And it's an addiction. Scrolling on social media releases the same sort of chemicals as sex, drugs, and alcohol. At least that's what my founder of the organization, Save Social, Bailey Parnell, found. It is right along the lines of those forms of addiction. It's not just like, oh, I can't put my phone down. It's releasing the same chemicals. It's doing the same things as these things that are normally moderated for adults, that are moderated for consumption, that are moderated for your health. So I feel like having that in mind, social media and mental health, it's very much connected. But at the same time, as we talked about before, your mindset going into that can also create social media to be this place that is your personal brand. It's your job search. It's creating company culture. It's participation. So there are lots of benefits that are good for your mental health, but it's a matter of how you yourself as the individual are using it.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm like listening, and there's a lot of good points in terms of the amount of time we spend on social media. It really depends on like what we're doing on it. Some people use it to make money, some people use it just to waste time. But I think the way we use it is usually more important. But in terms of like the mental health aspect of it, what are some of the signs that we know like it's affecting our mental health? Because sometimes we think there are positive things that come out of it, but how do we know when it's affecting our mental health, and what are some signs to look for?
Sure. So before we kind of touch on that, I do want to highlight some of the relevant and current research that is kind of relevant to this conversation, specifically about social media use and our mental health. Rachel already touched upon it. I briefly talked about, the dopamine rush, which is exactly the chemical that's being released, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think like sugar high, think high from, drugs, from any kind of addictive sort of activities, right? You're activating that reward circuit in your brain. So when we're kind of looking at engagement or looking at insights, likes, shares, views, right? That's the pathway that's being activated in your brain circuit, and that's the reward circuit. So the more that we activate that, the more we want to activate that and keep that activated because of the feel-good nature of that activation sequence. So kind of going back a little bit before that, even when we started first seeing a lot of use of social media, researchers were concerned, right? They're like, what is this? Like, what are the implications? So many uncertainties. Let's hypothesize all the ways that social media use might be bad for us and bad for our mental health. So I touch upon some of the earlier points. They thought, okay, social media is going to lead to people not being active, not leading an active lifestyle. They're going to lead to people being just depressed, anxious, suicidal. They're going to have lots of tension in their relationships. They might experience cyberbullying, high rates of comparison, all of those things, body dysmorphia. It might create addictions, and of course, the use of mobile devices in and of itself also has strong implications for your mental health because it affects and interferes with our sleep drive. The light directly interferes with our zeitgebers, which is one of the things that we use to regulate our own kind of internal clock, right? And the light emitting from these electronic devices interferes with those signaling. And so we find ourselves late at night not being able to go to sleep because we're scrolling through our phone. So all of those things were hypothesized, all of those things were found in connection with social media use. Now, what's really interesting is, aside from the disruptions in sleep, over time, as we have more social media platforms, more usage, we're finding that the use of social media itself doesn't create or lead to increases in depression, anxiety, suicide, all of those things, right? It's actually sometimes vice versa. Sometimes it's that those who are experiencing depressive moods, anxieties, are turning to social media. So kind of the connection and the relationship dynamic is really important to clarify for just to better understand its connection to our mental health. So I kind of want to open with that. and then, in terms of the signs of social media affecting our mental health, well, I think we're all pretty good evaluators of our own well-being, right? No one knows us better than ourselves. So we know when our emotions are not on par. We know when we're getting a bit jittery, a bit anxious, a bit upset, or just emotional. And so I would say that is actually the most important part, is when we become aware and monitor our own well-being, our own emotions, our own mental health. Irregardless of our use of social media, we could be feeling down and read a book or listen to a sad song. But the most important thing is recognizing when we're not at our optimal self.
I agree with you, Jenny. Like, those are all very strong points. I feel like I'm always going to agree with today, as we're like kind of talking about the same
We're
thing.
very aligned there.
Yes. Oh, for sure. I feel like signs that social media is impacting mental health, there are like actual physical things that you can see to recognize that, such as like just screen time notifications. And sometimes you don't even realize how much time you are spending on your phone, because a lot of the part that impacts your mental health is also the time consumption and the time you spend distracting yourself. Because while there are positive relationships with using social media when feeling lonely or anxious, the reliance on using social media can also have an impact as well, because there are maybe other things, other steps you can do to become, to enter a state where you're feeling better about yourself. Step one of safe social is to build awareness and understanding. First thing is being self-aware. Self-awareness is critical. It's so crucial to the way that you want to better yourself, but also understanding, am I using this because I want it or because I need it? Am I scrolling because I'm enjoying the content, or am I distracting myself? Asking those self-aware questions are so important. And there are times, even myself, where I've fallen down the rabbit hole of a mindless scroll and I stop and I don't remember anything I was just watching. It was a form of distraction. It was a numbing effect just to keep me from not thinking about other things that were bothering me, as other people do. So being aware that, one, that you are doing this action, but two, that there are things to do and questions to ask and steps to take that go beyond the scroll is super important in bettering your mental health and bettering your relationship with offline people, building the offline soft skills of resilience, time management, confidence. All these things are so critical to bettering your mental health.
Yeah, and I just want to add on to that as well, is sometimes it's not about also monitoring what you do with social media. It's also monitoring yourself when you're not on social media. Um, right? It's sometimes recognizing the relationship we have with social media and recognizing, okay, you know what, I've been at work all day, it's so busy, and yet I keep thinking about it and it's stressing me out that I haven't checked. Or, you know, I feel like I can't go on because I don't have the time to go and like all my friends' photos. Or, oh, I feel like I really need to have some new content to post. I haven't posted in a while. It's like these kind of perpetuating thoughts that take you away from your present self and your present life. These are kind of, whether they're ruminative, you're thinking about things that happened in the past, or whether you're anticipating and having anxieties about some sort of future event having to do with social media. That is absolutely an indicator that maybe you need to reevaluate your relationship with the use of social media, right? When you're not on it, how are you feeling about it? Does it affect your day to day?
I'm like saying all every time because like I'm getting like a lot of new things because sometimes I find myself scrolling through social media and like I see it, I'm like, what was I supposed to do? You know, like I think it kind of takes time from a lot of things that we can do as individuals. We can socialize outside, and like you were mentioning, like we are more connected than ever, but we're also more lonely than ever. But I wanted to ask, in terms of like us university students or any people who are like usually on social media, how do we modify our social media use, or how do we conduct the time so that it's not affecting our mental health too much and it's not like keeping us offline?
I'd love to start this one if that's okay, Jenny.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, so at Safe Social, we have a resource page that talks about ways to moderate your consumption. Essentially, that's what you want to do. And the first step that you need to take is to audit your social media feeds. Clean up your feeds, unfollow people that leave you feeling like you don't like yourself, unfollow accounts that make you feel like you compare yourself too much. Clean up, you don't have to follow everyone. Like there's like this unspoken rule, like, oh, you got to follow everyone you follow back. Or I feel like I have to follow my aunt because she's related to me, or I have to follow this person because they're friends with my friend. There's no have to's for anything because it is your social media. So auditing your feeds is like crucial to starting the cleanup, because that'll improve your scroll. Seeing things that actually make you happy. So by auditing, you also need to start following what inspires me, what artist makes me happy every time I see them, what friend do I look forward to seeing how they're doing. So that's an important first step. And the next thing is also to prioritize offline time, because we are working from home, most of us at least, we're staring at our screens all the time. As much as social media is a great escape and it's very entertaining and it's great to have, you also need to find these offline habits that really maximize your time for you. It was coming back to what Jenny said about the past self, present self, being present. I feel like having offline habits that really allow you to be grounded in the now are so important. And we always also suggest just trying a digital detox. Like maybe I won't go on social media all day. How many times do you grab your phone and realize I don't need this? Just by stopping yourself completely and then realizing how many times you grab your phone, you'll see the habit that you need to break. Because it is a habit. That's what it's become. That's why when you open your phone and you're on social media and you realize you needed your calculator, you're like, oh, this is just a habit. So the last thing I would suggest is also trying analog versions. Get an alarm clock. Try getting one of those like watches so you're not checking your steps on your phone all the time. Like looking for analog versions of things so you don't have to rely on your phone will help break the habit of always wanting to go to your phone. And that's pretty much what I have.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with all of that. And I also just want to highlight as well that sometimes it's perfectly okay to use social media and to cope with social media, to distract yourself, or to just spend some time scrolling and enjoying.
I think there's technical difficulty.
To create the sense of community around you. Or I noticed that my internet connection is a bit stable. So, but basically creating that community. And so it's okay for you to spend some time on social media if that makes you feel good. You know, if you had a busy day at work and you just want to scroll and look at pictures or videos of puppies, nothing wrong with that, right? Or if you just want to, you found a community of university students and they're all on TikTok making funny, relatable videos. It makes you feel like you're part of a community. It makes you feel validated. So part of the kind of the supportive habits to improve mental health is also allowing yourself the permission to use to some degree, right? And not creating that internal tension that, oh, I must be off my phone all the time. I must implement these strict criteria. If I spend, 5 minutes too long on social media, I need to not feel so good about myself. Not at all, right? It's about that flexibility that we create for ourselves.
I fully agree with that. And I feel like social media is slowly becoming the backbone of how society is connecting. And part of Safe Social, it's not about canceling social media. It's about being aware of the fact that social media exists, that it can affect you, but you need to take care of yourself and your relationship with it. Your relationship with social media will flow and change just as every relationship in life. So being aware that it's not always going to be the best thing for you, but it could also be the best thing for you is so important. Because I feel like, yeah, we do often tend to talk social media is bad, but it can also be, like Jenny said, a great escape and a great way to connect. And that's the best thing. That's why they were first connected. It's the social network to be connected.
Yeah, I feel like there's a fine line between social media being good and social media being bad, because like there is a lot of things that we can do in it, and there's also a lot of things that we can get out of it that's negative. But I think I want to know what causes the unhealthy use of social media. Like you were mentioning, it's a lot of things that we have from within, but are there any other like causes that can make it unhealthy?
So relating back to the research on this particular piece, I think is super relevant, right? It's not necessarily that social media causes us to be unhealthy, is that some of our predispositions for, say, not staying in the present moment, comparing ourselves to others, wanting to always be in the center of the attention, or wanting to always be in the know, wanting information all the time. It's those tendencies that can sometimes be amplified with social media platforms, whichever platform that we're on. So it's not necessarily that social media could cause the worsening of the mental health. It's about our relationship with our own mental health and how we can develop or strengthen our own well-being, and then practice appropriate use of social media such that it doesn't amplify or worsen our state of being.
Yeah, exactly that. It does start with you. It can't be social media itself. The 5 steps of safe social are: 1, build awareness of understanding; 2, moderate your consumption, because 9 times out of 10, we are spending a bit more than we actually need to on there. 3 is to build offline soft skills. So that's the resilience, the time management, the confidence. Step 4 is to be a good role model. So as much as we are talking about this now, we need to show this to the younger generations, that it doesn't have to be facing the phone all the time, that there is balance, and to the older generation of people, that it's not a necessity that we can't put our phones down. We have to teach them and educate the young and the old as to why this is an incredibly useful tool. And step 5 is to hold responsible parties accountable. We can't really have big tech hold themselves accountable, because they rarely do. So it is up to us on the individual scale to moderate our consumption, but create the healthy habits offline for you, taking care of yourself, because Instagram itself isn't looking out for you. It is working its algorithm. It is running advertisements. It's doing what it can, because it is a business when it comes down to it. So the big tech isn't going to look out for us. We have to look out for ourselves.
And just to add to that, so some things that you can do is to really look at the security features of your social media platforms, right? Maybe turn off that geolocation, maybe don't send your data to third parties, turn off targeted advertisement, those kind of small changes, or even use the nighttime function on your phone where you turn off social apps altogether by a certain time. Those are kind of healthy habits that we can develop. But at the same time, recognizing that all of these are external to us and our mental health is actually with us, right? And so for us to actually have good mental health, it starts with us, with our own practices. And that starts with taking accountability and taking responsibility. We can't just blame something external, like the big tech or Instagram, for making us not feel so good.
For sure. And I think having early on conversations with even kids and, even like older adults, because I haven't gotten that conversation of like, if you use social media this much, you're going to get this, there isn't a conversation that happens. So when do you think is a good time to bring up any side effects or any things that can come with social media to kids or the younger generation? And how do we come up with it? Sorry.
Yeah, this is an interesting question, because sometimes the relationship itself is already healthy. And, if we bring unnecessary attention to it, it might shift that dialogue, and it might create stigma. It might create this thing that's bigger than it needs to be. Right. So it's about also self-monitoring, but also monitoring of those around you. Do they look like they have an unhealthy habit? And if so, maybe then you can kind of step in, just like you would see your parents or your friends having a drink at the end of the day, right? It's pretty normal. But if they are day after day binge drinking, then you might say, okay, maybe something's going on. Maybe I need to kind of have a conversation. We should approach social media with others in the same way, right? We shouldn't assume that everyone starts off having a bad relationship, or that everyone has a perfectly healthy relationship. It's about kind of that flexibility and that monitoring. I personally find, as a scientist, starting with the science is always a good place to be objective, right? Then you remove that emotionality out of it, right? If you talk about, hey, I noticed that you're on your phone a lot at nighttime. How's your sleep? Because there's lots of research showing that light is really, really bad for your sleep regulation. And teenagers, adolescents, young adults, our sleep is terrible. And that's because there's so many factors influencing, so many hormonal changes. It's really, really hard. And so that's always a good place, right? To grab onto some hard science there and tap into that conversation.
Oh, yes, sir. You pretty much hit the nail on the head. Like I don't really have too much to add. I feel like you're correct in saying that it comes down to taking care of yourself first. So that just knowing that is great. I think that it depends on when people start also using social media and how often is now going to be implicated in society now that kids are doing school online. How does that change their relationship with technology? And Safe Social itself has lesson plans that we have implicated in certain schools that are grade school, but also high school and also university. But I think it's just having the conversation open that kids can go to their parents or their teachers and have them know how to respond. Like if a sixth grader goes to their teacher and they go, I'm being bullied, someone DM'd me this, and their teacher goes, what's a DM? They instantly don't feel like there's like a level of understanding and that the problem won't be resolved. So I think even if it's not like we're educating children, but educating the educators and the parents so that they have the dialogue to communicate with kids once they want to address it, I think that's huge.
Okay. Because I'm thinking about the younger kids, my nephews, my nieces, and how I can bring those conversations to them. But you know how sometimes we get the fear of missing out if we're not on social media. How do you kind of like not, like sometimes I find myself, for example, if I'm on social media and let's say I'm sleeping during the night, early in the morning, the first thing I would usually do is check my social media. But when I'm trying to not check my social media, I'm like, what happened? What happened while I was sleeping? Is there any advice that you can give for that?
How to get rid of FOMO?
Technically, yes.
So FOMO is real, right? It is, and there's kind of no denying its existence. Now, before social media, some of that would just be a phone call to your friend in the morning and say, hey, I missed out on going out last night. Tell me everything, right? And now it takes a quick scroll and you've got 80% of the picture and maybe some stronger feelings because now you've got like visuals to accompany your emotions, right? So we can't necessarily remove that fear of missing out, but what we can do is change our relationship to that and recognize that even before social media, we were on the phone connecting. And at its core, fear of missing out is fearing that loss of connection. And so finding ways to develop that relationship, whether online or offline, that meaningful connection. There's nothing that superficial photos can do to take away from that meaningful connection. And so sometimes that's what we can focus on instead, right? It's about, do I have FOMO, or do I just miss my friend, and do I just miss connecting?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like when you are feeling FOMO, as much as like you do want to scroll, the best thing to do is to connect with the friends and family. Like your friends and family are your biggest support, and having basically reinforcing those connections that you already know are solid. Even though you're worried about missing out on XYZ, you will always have your parents, or you always have your best friend. And you know that even though you didn't go out, you have these people in your life. And it's again about coming back to being present and being grateful. And it's hard to be grateful when you're missing out. But if you take that energy or that bad feeling like, oh man, I really wish I went out with my friends last night, and you can come back into the present moment and be like, although I didn't go out, I slept in my bed. My sister was a phone call away. I have this, my favorite food in the fridge downstairs tomorrow. Basically, like reminding yourself that, yeah, that sucked, but I have this. And it's not to like minimize the fact that you felt that. We all feel it, and that's okay. That's the thing. It's not abnormal to feel like, oh man, I really wish I went out. I think everyone feels that, and it's the fact that kind of sucks, but at least I have X. And that's kind of what you have to reframe your mindset to be like, I miss out on this, and my life sucks, and this and this and that. Stopping the spiral before it happens and bringing yourself back to the present moment is so crucial to stopping that flow of like bad mental health, social media connection.
Yes. And just to add to that, so what Rachel has just demonstrated is a classic way to regulate our own emotions. And once again, in all of that conversation, social media was not, an integral part of that. It comes down to our own mental health and our own self-care, right? So when we get uncomfortable emotions as a result of social media, maybe social media was a trigger, but we are the ones that are now holding those uncomfortable emotions. And so what we can do is actually practice emotion regulation techniques, right? Similar to what Rachel said, we can just create some space to allow for discomfort to happen. So rather than saying, oh, I'm FOMOing so bad this morning, blah, 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 I feel so bad, I should have gone out. Oh, why did I do this? Why didn't I go out? Why did I get so lazy? Who cares if I have to take an hour to get ready and I didn't get any sleep, right? Before that spiral, just create a little distance from you and the negative emotion, right? You can say, I woke up this morning and I'm having a feeling that I'm FOMOing, right? Just create that little space. Allow yourself the room to still experience the negative emotions, because that grounds you in that moment right then and there. But then recognize that you're not just those negative emotions, right? And once you create that little bit of room, there's room for more. There's room for more growth, for more self-care, for you to actually identify that, okay, now you're holding some negative emotions. What do you want to do about it?
Okay. I'll definitely try all those amazing advice that you guys just gave me. But I wanted to ask for any additional resources or any ways that we can enforce like positive habits, and also any things that you guys may do personally that you think can help us and the participants.
I feel like Rachel gave so many tips, right? And
Yes.
definitely check out her organization's resource kits because they sound amazing. I will be happy to share maybe 2 of the latest research articles that really highlight that that social media doesn't cause negative mental health consequences, and sometimes it's vice versa. For anyone who's kind of interested in the science of things and wants to kind of read a research paper, that's what I can provide. Other thing to do is to develop your life outside of social media, right? It's great that maybe your social media feed looks amazing, right? Looks like you have this great life, great balance, but do you, right? Develop that balance for real, offline, and then, post whatever you like, but make sure that you're doing all of those things for you. If you're going to the gym, it's because it makes you feel good, not because there's a photo op. Or, if you're taking a vacation, same, right? So kind of less focus on the social media itself, but more focus on you. Focus on building a better you, being the best version of yourself for you, not for social media.
I fully agree. I think the highlight reel that we post and the highlights of our life that we post, while they're great, we also have dips, and that's normal. And accepting the highs and lows with it are so important to having a better relationship, because that's how all relationships grow, accepting that there's going to be good times and bad times. Some tips while you're scrolling is just to make it mindful. You say each photo, maybe you can ask yourself a different question, like, do I actually like this piece of content, or am I just tapping it because I feel like that's what I have to do? Does this bring like value or benefit to my life? Do I like it because I physically like it? Like, or do I actually like it? Like asking yourself those real questions. Like, do you know the person posting this? Do you generally like the content that they share? And if any of those questions like, I don't know, you don't need it. It's just all about the audit. And every time you scroll, you're going to find something that maybe you don't like. And then you might find something that you really enjoy that will make it all the more exciting and inspirational to when you do have that good relationship you can go to and be like, hey, I saw this great post today, and connecting with others.
Mm-hmm. It's about you being the center of your own world, not social media as the center of your world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. I would like to open the floor to any questions that you guys might have. I think there might be questions already.
I just got a private comment that that they would like the science. So I shared just the 2 articles briefly summarizing social media and its relationship with mental health.
Anybody can ask questions if you guys have them. If not, I'll continue asking the questions I have.
I think there's a hand.
Oh, Sujita. Go
Hi.
ahead.
So as I've been listening, and I feel like I've kind of had a change in perspective, because every time I look at social media, I'm always blaming social media for whatever I'm feeling. But now, like hearing you guys and hearing your backgrounds, I just want to kind of confirm or like clarify what you guys were saying. Because usually when I do like a detox from social media and then I come back, usually I start binging social media. But during my detox area, I feel really good. I'm like, okay, so social media was the problem. But right now, I feel like I'm kind of hearing that it's not social media, more so like first take care of your mindfulness, first take care of your mental health, and then you're going to have a different opinion on social media. So just wanted to kind of like clarify that for everyone that's also listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Go ahead.
Oh, I was like living for this because during your detox period, when you're away from social media, you're likely filling that time with activities that you really enjoy, right? You're staying grounded in the moment. I don't know if you're connecting with friends in other ways, you're reading a book, you're going out to exercise, you're going out for walks, whatever you're doing during those detox moments are the life and you living in that moment in your life, right? And that's you living your best life. Now, if you integrate social media back in, you can still do all of those things and then have social media sparingly as you need it. It wouldn't detract or take away from any of those things that you've done while you're detoxing. So kind of think of it like that it's not the absence of social media that made you feel so great. It's the fact that you took those moments to engage in other forms of self-care.
Yeah, you're refocusing on you. And that's something maybe you didn't realize that you needed and you didn't have the time for because you never had the time to do that. But I'm agreeing with Jenny where when you are away from your phone, at least for myself and other people I've spoken to, there is a refocus on yourself. What do I need? What do I enjoy? How can I pass the time? And like she said, 9 times out of 10, you're filling that with things that you probably enjoy or things you needed to do that you were just procrastinating with. So checking those things off the boxes as well, really great feeling, which is where that joy comes from.
Yeah,
Exactly.
thank you guys.
Justin?
We have Justin.
Hi. Again, thank you too for having this chat with us. So with the concept of the metaverse coming out, is this something that we need to worry about our mental health, about being more isolated, or is this going to be something that benefits us and have us more connected?
I guess I'll take a first crack at it. I'll be the first to say I have no idea what the metaverse will look like. I don't know that most of us will do. And so now it's kind of, we start to see we're now that generation facing an unknown and speculating, right, about all of the dangers. And sometimes that itself could be harmful because we're attributing so much to something that we don't know anything about yet. So I would just caution us to kind of make a lot of assumptions about what might happen, what might not happen, how might affect our mental health. And still at the end of the day, no matter what, we are physical beings living our daily lives, right? So we still got to just focus on ourselves first.
I fully agree. I feel like we are living through history right now, like not just the pandemic, but we are the first few generations to grow up with social media embedded in our life. There are no generations ahead of us that have done this before that can give us guidance. We are figuring it out as we go. So it's going to be a learning curve for everyone. There's no one that's going to be able to say, well, because this happened in the past, we can expect X, Y, Z. This is happening right now. And all we can do is fully enforce and reinforce those habits of, as much as there is going to be online stuff, there's no denying it. But like Jenny said, we are living beings. We are here right now. And the physical world isn't going to go away anytime soon. So as long as we understand that, accepting what's going to come and what was, but where we are now, again, I think coming back to the present and being like, we don't know what's going to happen. We'll figure it out as we go because there's no one else to really guide us. Right now, we just have each other and we have to rely on each other as connections and sources.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't see questions, I think. Okay. If anybody wants to speak up, you can, in case I'm not seeing it. Okay. I think we're about at that time. If we can take one or two questions, if anybody has questions.
I actually have a question real quick. So based off of studies, so both of you seem very delved. I mean, Jenny, you studied this, and Rachel, you're ongoing with your experience and working on it. Is there kind of an average regarding a recommended amount of hours that we should be spending? I mean, we can track how many hours we're spending on our phones, and we can also track or put a limit to how many hours we are on every app, like kind of controlling our consumption. I know my parents have that for my sister on her iPad. So there's like a limited amount of hours for games and for social media. That way it's very balanced and she's getting a taste of using her iPad, but at the same time focusing on school and extracurriculars. So for us adults, we have to maintain ourselves. So is there a number of hours that you recommend, as well as how many hours we should kind of put down our phone or put down social media before bed for optimal sleep quality?
All very good question. I would argue that was not one question, so I'm really excited to answer all of them. So in terms of first the optimal hours of social media use, I will say that that strongly varies based on your own lifestyles, right? Some people use social media as a means of conducting business, as their only source of livelihood. Some people use social media as an extension of themselves, their professional selves, their private selves, and all of those things. And so with all of those variabilities, and also with the changes in life, like sometimes you're just not very busy and you have the time, and other times you have things that you need to get done and you don't have time to be scrolling or posting, right? So giving ourselves the permission to be flexible, that creates a healthier relationship with social media. Then we're not restricting based on arbitrary limitations or, random sort of stringent guidelines that quite honestly is always difficult to enforce anyway, right? So give yourselves the permission to be flexible, but also create a healthy relationship with yourself where you're monitoring your own use. And with that monitoring comes the sleep, which, like, to relax, or maybe we just want to mindlessly scroll because we want to wind down at night. So we often instinctively reach for the phone, and we often just go and start doing that, not recognizing it's actually interfering with our sleep schedules. And so with that, knowing how long it is that you need to sleep, knowing that what time you need to go to bed, and give yourself maybe about an hour or two before to just turn away from all electronic devices. This creates healthier boundaries, work-life balance, and it also gives you a routine to wind down for bedtime that is just very healthy to do anyway, regardless of the use of social media or anything else.
I fully agree. I think having strong morning and evening routines are crucial to just a better life. And if checking your phone first thing in the morning is a habit and not a necessity, try like leaving it in another room and like put it in that room, go to bed in your room and go back to that space there. Or if you are studying and you can't stop checking your phone, put it in another room, because removing it physically will, first of all, it's like stop the habit of just grabbing it, but also it'll cause you to be like, okay, what can I do without my phone? How do I start my morning without my phone?
There's that nighttime app where you can turn off all the social. So even if you say you need it for other things, sometimes I find myself just grabbing it out of habit, and then I'll click on a social and it'll say, oh, my time's restricted. And I thought, oh, okay, well, I don't need it then. I'll just put it down, right? But sometimes those little external kind of ways to limit our use can be very helpful and serve us as constant reminders for ourselves.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I think we are at time. We don't want to take too much time for you guys. So we will put the resources so that you guys can connect with Jenny or Rachel right now. If you have any further questions, you can, well, I guess, connect with them. Can you guys see it?
It says I need access, so I sent a request.
Yeah, it
only
says
see
I
the
need
three of
access
us.
as well.
I'll make it public. Sorry, guys.
No problem.
Yep.
Can you see it?
Yeah, it's visible now.
Okay.
There we
So
go.
we'll give you guys a couple of minutes or seconds to maybe take a picture of it. But yeah, we really thank you, Jenny and Rachel, for coming tonight. We know you're really busy, and we appreciate you taking time to educate us. And I have gotten a lot of things that I need to work on. I'm sure everybody here can agree with me as well. But really, thank you for coming. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for us. Like, I feel like I learned so much even from Jenny, and I hope that she learns that from me. It was a really great conversation. I feel like we built off each other quite well, and I feel like everyone's walking away with something new. Like, whether we're an expert or not, we're all walking away with something new, and that's what this is all about. So I'm really glad that we were able to contribute to this conversation.
Absolutely. And I like to remind everyone that Zoom is also a social platform, right? And we have this wonderful opportunity to connect. I'm so glad that you had me, and I so loved connecting with you, Rachel. I just feel like we were just, very aligned.
Yes.
And yeah, and I learned so much as well. So it's right, it's all about developing that relationship with whatever platform that you're using.
Yeah, most definitely. And we are gonna continue those kind of conversations within ourselves for sure. I'm hoping. But yeah, thank you so much for coming out. And we are at time.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Amazing. Oh, let me stop recording.
Oh, yeah.